Thank you for having me, everybody. Hopefully this is going to be a fun session. Like it to be interactive, so rather than questions at the end, although we can do that, if you see something and you want to have it, ask a question, raise your hand and we'll take it as we go, okay? Looking at things in theoretical terms, it's okay. I much prefer, though, show and tell format. And so what you're going to see is some of the things that my team has put together with the help of some of the folks here at TCRI. So thank you very much for those that have helped us out. And we're going to talk about two things, fun and profit with analytics. The first one, though, like I said, we're going to go some introductions just to ground some of the things I'm going to show you. And then I'm going to walk you through kind of the current state of analytics at Cushman & Wakefield within our company, but also some of our client needs as well. And then I'm going to show you a particular case study that involves predictive analytics as well, which is an emerging thing for us as an industry, but also as a company as well. So first off, Cushman & Wakefield. Again, you guys don't know us because we're not really in Sri Lanka, but we are a very, very, very large company. We're about $8 billion in revenue, about 58,000 employees around the world. As you can see, dots all over the map there. And essentially, what we do is a full life cycle management or brokerage services or ownership facilities management for commercial properties. And we're also in some residential space as well, but commercial is really the lifeblood of the company. And so whether you're selling a building, you own a building and you want us to manage it for you, you want us to do the accounting for your building, maybe you own a stadium and you need janitorial services for major events and such, that is what Cushman & Wakefield does. Within Cushman, though, specifically my team, we are business platform solutions. Very generic name, probably by design, because the list of things that we do grows every single day, or it seems to at least. And so I run this team as if it was a professional services or a software firm within this big monolith of an enterprise. And we have to. We have to be reactive to all the different changes in the new service lines that are emerging. Co-working spacing, for example, so WeWork is probably a pretty familiar name. That is a trend in our industry that's somewhat disruptive, but on the whole, these service lines that we run don't change a lot. And so what we are trying to be is innovative within the company. And you'll see here, we organize this particular team around 8 service lines. So we have custom development that is some full stack, but we actually have a very loosely coupled stack that is our preferred method as well. We own the collaboration suite, which is primarily Office 365. We're a very, very big Microsoft shop. We also run analytics and AI, which is the particular topic that we're going to run through today. We also own and operate our global web platform. So if you go to cushwake.com, it's a glorified billboard today, but at the end of the year here, we're about to launch the largest implementation of Sitecore 9 on Azure PaaS in the world. And the idea behind it is we're taking it from being a billboard into a more lead-generating platform and actually doing more digital marketing as well. So watch that space for that. We also run a multi-threaded managed services arm of my team as well. So if you think about all these different nodes here, most of them are around build or net new. The managed services arm is all around the run and the operations of the team as well. And it's a really good counterbalance to all the fast-moving and creative things that we're doing, is we also have to run those as well, and that's what that service line does. We also own and operate the ideation framework and platform within our company. So that's crowdsourcing of ideas, both from our employees, but also from our customers. We actually white labeled this as well and run it as kind of an instance within certain clients, very large occupier clients as well. UI UX is a relatively new service line. We've always done it. We've always paid really close attention to user-centric design in the things that we build and we produce. But now we're actually packaging that. We're actually selling that back to the business and to other groups within IT as well. Started that just in July and it's taking off really, really well. And then RPA. If you don't know what RPA is, it's robotic process automation. It's a pretty big buzzword of the day. And it's all about taking processes that were very manual, lots of people needed to do it, scripting it, turning it into a robot that can emulate the human's actions, and now it's very scalable and very repeatable. And then finally, global architecture. I am the global enterprise architect for Cushman. We lead it as a collaborative structure within the company, and it's more of a representative EA. So we're not ivory tower. We're trying to take into account all the things that are going on. The company as a whole is very, very diverse, and it's a very matrix organization. We have 3 primary regions, technically 4 with Greater China, but generally we think of ourselves in terms of the Americas, the EMEA region, and the APAC region. And because of that, I have, I think, 9 CIOs now total that are involved. And what that means is, and it's very telling of, is how the data within our organization operates. It's incredibly siloed. We have large implementations like our Triana project, which is a big thing that Tikri is helping us out with. That is our big client-facing stack for our occupier business. So the people that have massive portfolios of properties in the world, and they want to have analytical information on those properties. How are they performing? When the leases are coming up, and what's the right time to get out of a lease if it's early, if the market's favorable. It's all driven by analytics. But the analytics that come from that particular unit, and they're fed through to those clients, is pretty much in a silo. It's not leveraged by a lot of other groups in the company. We also have, like our Americas group, for example, they've developed what they call the Property Hub. And that is all around the asset services business in the Americas, the ownered properties where we manage the building for them, per se. Market activation, another great example. It's another Americas one. This team put together a analytical suite that helps the individual city leaders or the city owners understand their market. And that's also data from outside. It's demographic information. It's trend information from the industry so that they know things like share of wallet. How much of this particular market is CUSHMAN getting the business from versus how much is going to our competitors. Terrific examples of analytical offerings, but they're all very, very point solution, and the data is also very segmented. Even though some of it is shared, from a conceptual standpoint and integration standpoint and reuse standpoint, they're not terrific. We also have application-based analytics. Pretty much every application that my team puts together has an analytical component to it, whether that be just operational analytics, so traffic management, for example. We built our intranet, which is a massively Angular application that runs like a single-page app. We track every piece of user behavior in there. We know how many clicks a certain button gets. We know the path that the users move throughout the intranet. We know when they're liking things, when they're sharing things, when they're bookmarking things. And then we use that as a product team to make decisions. When we were finding from the analytics that people were struggling with search because it had been relegated up into the top navigation, we brought it down, made it front and center, and the analytics improved, and we could make a measurable decision based on the data within the apps. We also have, though, Prism and SaltMine are 2 good examples where, as a company, we typically operate on a partnership model. And that's very true of my team as well. So everything that you saw on that prior slide with all the nodes, there's less than 10 of us for that global thing worldwide. And the reason we can do that is we have partners like Tikri and others who help us scale. But from an internal team perspective, extremely lean. We are very, very lean and agile. So to the keynote point this morning about small teams, you can't get much smaller than us for the scale that we're actually dealing with as well. But Prism and SaltMine are 2 great examples. One is a proprietary example where we built the system, in the case of Prism, and it's all around 3D mapping and modeling. And the analytics comes in by overlaying demographic data, space planning, and stacking plan information on that 3D modeling and the mapping data to then tell the story with analytics as well. SaltMine, on the other hand, uses analytics in a slightly different way. It's actually a vendor product, and it's for visualizing space build-out. So you can actually picture the office that you want to build before you ever actually break ground. We also then have IT operational analytics, and this is one of the things that we're going to live dangerously and do a bit of live demonstration for you today. Not all slides, but we actually use our analytics on ourselves. And I'm going to show you something that we call the Pulse. And we've built an entire application around analytics for IT, essentially. And we track everything. We track the incidents, we track how the systems are performing. But then for things like the SaltMine example, we have a lot of partnership play, like I said, and we want to also track how big of an impact that is making in terms of us being innovative, us being able to do more things for our clients and generate more revenue as well. But as I said, in all these cases, big part of our problem is that the data is siloed, and that is something that we're working on to make it better. Part of the problem, though, part of solving the problem, the first step is really just getting to grips with the architecture. And again, that's where kind of having that unifying team where we've got lots of different diverse tendrils, including the enterprise architecture, we can start to fix some of that problem by breaking down these silos and these walls. So GTS Pulse, like I said, it is the hub for IT. And it's a marriage of all this strategic data from the CIO level, so they want to be able to understand Are things making a difference? Where do we need to make strategic choices and changes? But it's also at the lower level as well. We originally built this, it was commissioned by our global CIO, Adam Stanley, last year in September. And he set out this vision of, I want to have a single pane of glass, which is an overused phrase, but he wants to understand and have his CIO suite understand what's happening in their environment. And so we set out to build this. What we quickly found, though, when we started asking these CIOs, what do you want to see on this? They couldn't articulate that. You know, it's really hard for somebody to come up with something from nothing. And so our approach to this was a little different. We actually started by just simply gathering all the reports and the analytics that my team had already built or we knew about that were in the enterprise. And we pulled them in and put them under one roof, which was this lightweight portal, and we called it the Pulse. Then from there, we've been iterating in an agile fashion for now over 12 months. We started out with an inventory of about 20 applications and reports that we were housing within the Pulse. We're up over 53, and we have a backlog of probably another 150 that just keep coming. Because every time somebody gets in there and they look at what we're producing, there's new ideas coming. Or they want to see that data at a more summary level where we're very granular, or vice versa. They may want more detail behind those numbers that we're showing. So again, this is a very lightweight portal. It's built with an Office 365 backend. We have an interesting architecture where we run client-side code. We actually host it on Office 365, so we cheat at Azure if the Microsoft people are not in the room. We also then use Power BI, and to the point about not pulling from the source systems directly, not pulling from the production databases, we've also leveraged Azure. We have Azure Data Factory doing a lot of ETL jobs. We have a lot of SQL kind of staging areas or data warehouses. Hesitate to call them a true data warehouse, but really staging areas for this data. Because in some cases, for example, we pull usage trends from our Office 365 system. We want to know how many licenses we're consuming. And are we actually maximizing it, or are we over-licensed and we potentially expose ourselves when it comes to the true-up? Are people adopting these technologies that we're pushing out into the enterprise? This is how we know. But in the certain cases, like those Office 365 APIs, we're limited. Because when we call into those APIs, I mean, it's not a production database that we're pulling from, but it is a production API. We're actually limited because it only gives us a 180-day trailing snapshot. Anything beyond that, we don't see. And when we call it tomorrow, we've lost a day. And so we had to rig up a whole bunch of ETL processes that would call this on a frequency so we could get the trending data that we needed to see. You know, we don't want to just see point in time. We want to see progressively, are the actions we're taking as an IT organization making a difference in the environment? All right, so we're going to, again, live dangerously. I'm going to show you guys what Pulse actually looks like here. So this is it. Very minimalist, and unfortunately it's very small on this very large screen, so bear with me. But we built out a very lightweight Angular application for this. And the idea behind it was that when we built this, we had 20 reports. We didn't know how many we were going to end up with and really what the shape was going to take. And so the idea behind this was we need to build a singular vehicle that would be able to scale and grow as Pulse grew. Now, we could have used the app service from Power BI. You could have just logged into app.powerbi. We stuff all these reports in a workspace. We weren't happy with that, though. We wanted a better experience because, again, our audience was our CIO suite. Now it's actually much, much broader than that. But we wanted to have a nice, seamless experience. And the other thing we wanted to control, too, is that not all of these reports are for everybody's eyes, especially as we started to grow the audience. Some reports are quite sensitive, and they have information in there that we don't want everybody to see. What building this portal let us do, though, is add a security layer so that we can trim certain reports out and show them to only the right people. The other thing that's pretty interesting about this is we built the portal around 4 pillars, and you can kind of see them here, or maybe you can't because of this nice little thing in the way here. But the 4 pillars are value and innovation, financials, risk, and service and operations. And that is the kind of cornerstones of the pillars that we organize the information around. So if it fits into one of those 4 things, it's worthy of being on the Pulse. And the menu system here, just to demonstrate this for you, this is actually reading out of a SharePoint list. And so that allowed us, again, to be very flexible because the portal is written once. It's actually just been, I just rewrote it into Angular 8. It's reading that dynamically real time from a SharePoint list. And so anytime a new report comes up, we get probably 2 to 3 reports published every month because, again, we're operating in an agile fashion. When they come in, they get added to the changelog, which is hard to read, but it's over there on the right, so people know that something new has been added to the Pulse ecosystem. and they add it into the SharePoint list. The SharePoint list is quite simple. It just has the GUIDs for the report, the workspace, and specifically the page of the report that we want to show. It also dictates the security. And so when we publish to that list, there's a new report. We can dictate this is for this security group only, or everybody can see it. And then when you come into the portal, I read that real time, so I get always the latest information. I check your group membership, and then I show you a very customized menu that's based on what you actually should be able to see. And so then from there, they can navigate around, they can expose all these different things. We're actually going to improve it by adding a little search on this menu as well. So if you don't want to browse because you don't really know what you're looking for, you can type a quick keyword in there, and we'll show you the reports that match some of that information. And then clicking on one of these will then dynamically call out to Power BI service, create the embed on its own, and then throw it right into the page. So this dashboard, for example, as I mentioned, one of our big plays as a company is partnership. We have a very, very large installation with Metaprop, which you may not be familiar. Plug and Play is another big provider of this as well. So we're partnering with these startups and these incubators who are doing a lot of prop tech type things because we want to take advantage of that. We're not in the business really of acquiring these folks and making it proprietary software that nobody else can touch. And so this is actually a report. And remember what I said, every time we build an application, we build analytics. This is analytics from an application that we wrote that manages those prop tech investments or the partnerships. We built a catalog that lets people browse the different partners that we're dealing with. And these happen to come in all the time. You know, brand new startups pop up all day long. And so we built a catalog for our business to be able to understand what are we doing with drones and inspections from drones? What are we doing with space planning? They can browse these partnerships that we're out there making. And then this analytics here is then so we can see what does the funnel look like. So we've got this cool radar chart here. All the dots that you see on there represent different partnerships. And you can see as they move towards the center, they've gone from being just, hey, there's a startup that does this, to they're actually a preferred vendor and we're running real pilots with our clients right now. And so this lets the owners of that space see how well we're doing in that. So again, marrying the application that we made to the analytics from that application, how many pilots are getting requested, things like that. What state is the relationship in? Are they a trusted partner? Are they an emerging partner? And then tying it into the singular view. So the application owner, they could see these analytics anyway. We've made them for them. But what this lets everybody in the IT organization see is what's going on. And so it's breaking those silos down, not only on the data front, but on the insights front as well. So that's Pulse. And again, there's many, many more different reports in there, different views, different bits of information. We have an at-a-glance view in there that lets you see the CIOC across the estate at a quick view what's going on right now. So the next thing I want to show you guys though, that's Pulse, and that's great for visualization, which is basically what it is. It's analytics from historical data, and it's great because now I can answer questions, I can see insights and things like that. But the next one I want to show you is how do you take that even further, which is kind of where we're setting our sights now. You know, we've made very pretty reports, and they're great, they're informational. But how can we actually be more predictive, more proactive in our analytics as well, and help the business make more money from it? So this is the profit part now. That was the fun part, this is the profit part. So I want to ground you guys, again, because you may not know what commercial real estate's all about, I want to just ground you in some background here. So one of our service lines is asset services, and they typically manage properties for owners. So you could have an owner who owns a Class A type building, a big office tower, maybe in the heart of a city somewhere, and they care about making money from that building by leasing out space, right? But during the course of that life, they also have to have that building managed, they have to have it maintained, there's also the financials for that building, and that's what this particular service line does. This is a service line that is very near and dear to me because it's actually where my team started 8 years ago. We actually started within just this one service line, and we built their entire technical stack out from a business custom application perspective. They do have off the shelf as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to root you in kind of a picture of the life of this particular group. So property management is a subset of asset services. And again, those are the people that manage the buildings. They're sitting on site, maybe, if it's a very large building or a trophy asset where you want to have a presence there to deal with the tenants, answer their questions, have a face-to-face with them, and really make it an experience to be in that building. You've also got client accounting. This is another group that actually does the financials. You know, they take the invoices from the landscaping vendors, they make the payments. At the end of every month, they do the financial close and hand off the reports to the property managers to say, this is how the property did this month, okay? Yardi, if you've never heard that term, it's a very big property management vendor. They're all over the world. People use it for real estate, they use it for residential. In our case, in this particular case, Yardi is the system of record, if you will, for all the property information. It's also where the accountants put in all those financial transactions. They manage the leases in there as well, when they're expiring, when they're coming up, who the tenants are, all of that. So Yardi is kind of the cornerstone or the hub for their world. And then you've got K1. K1 is a system that we wrote for them. It's an onboarding system, or really it's a meta system. So it's not the system of record, but it handles every transaction related to the building, whether it's an incoming building and the onboarding of that property, whether it's a change in the services, it all originates in K1. And if we happen to lose the building, that also originates in K1 as well. It's integrated with Yardi, it's feeding on that data real time, it's also feeding data down to it, as it's the most upstream in terms of an onboarding. And then we have Time Tracker. So Time Tracker is a timekeeping solution that we made. We made it for the client accounting group. So you've got these accountants working on properties day and night, hopefully more day than night, but they could be working on 30, 40, 50 properties in a single month. Because if you think about it, you can stagger the financial close dates and spread the load out, and so you've got great economies of scale because it's the same action, different properties, and they work on a lot of them. Well, in order to bill back the clients based on how much time those accountants are working, they had to have a really good and accurate way to measure how much time that was actually taking. And so Time Tracker was a system that we built for them that was tailor-made to adapt to the way that they work. Again, they work on a lot of properties. So a system where you're filling out one form for one entry of time, and then you have to do it again and again and again. It's not going to be efficient. And so we built this system with the idea that we would make it very fun and efficient. We even gamified it for the accountants to put their time in, and we get terrific accuracy now on the time that they're taking to service these properties. So the problem, though, and this is where predictive analytics differs from visualization analytics, it's all about solving for a hypothesis or solving a problem and answering a question. So in this case, new opportunities that were coming in the door through K1, when it came to client accounting, they were guesstimating, basically. They had a spreadsheet, and it was formulaic, but they were still guessing at how much time it was going to take to service a property when it came in the door. And what that means is you could be losing money. You could be underbidding that property, and then the accountants take longer than you actually presented to the client, and so now you're essentially eating that cost. It could work the other way, but the biggest thing was they just didn't know. They were basing this on a gut feeling or intuition or historical kind of experience and things like that. What we could base it on, though, is reality, and that's kind of what we set out to fix for them. So just to walk you through the K1 pricing workflow. So this is some screenshots of K1. This is, again, the application we built. So they come in, they have a dashboard of all the opportunities. This is typically the city leads, those people out in the markets who are actually making the sale, finding those new buildings to take on. They put in their information. It's a little bit CRM, but it's really not a CRM system. The idea was you're giving us pieces of information early in the process so that we can ready the teams to onboard that property as quick and as painlessly as we can. So as they're putting that in, part of what they have to do is they have to present to the system so that we can kick it through a workflow over to the finance teams. How much are you bidding this on, basically? What are you expecting to gather as a revenue from this property so we can ensure that we're making money? And for the property management side of the house, it's all baked into this workflow within the application. And then it goes to a finance person who says, yep, you're going to make enough profit margin on that. Go forth and make the deal happen, or no, we're not going to make money on that. You have to explain to me why you're doing this. And it could be that it's a loss leader because we want a larger portfolio, but we want to get our foot in the door, things like that. But again, when it came to client accounting, they were just providing a number. And so when it came for the application to say, yes, that's good, or no, that's bad, it was a little bit flawed. So how can we improve upon that is what our hypothesis was. We've got all this terrific data that we're gathering from Time Tracker because we built it. We had 6 years of terrifically accurate time data. And so Time Tracker, I've got some screenshots of it here just to show you. It's a timesheet solution. Again, it's feeding on Yardi, so it's always up to date with what properties those accounts are working on. They can very quickly cycle through that. They can see their time at a month level, and it gets approved every month by their manager, and they can see all the properties that they've been working on. And then they can also even have some analytics within the application. So this isn't Power BI, this is literally within the application. You could look at your time as an accountant and see stats like, which has been the property I've spent the most on, which types of properties do I typically work on, when am I most efficient, all that kind of information. So again, analytics-based information to help me, the user, just understanding how I'm spending my time. So when it came to this hypothesis then, we knew where we had to gather the data from. We've got Yardi, which is our system of record for the properties, has the information about things like the lease, the tenant count, the market, the address of the property, things like that. We have K1, which is our source for the incoming information, the opportunities that we're going to get. And that is our most upstream system again, so we need that because if it's a brand new building, that's where we're going to get the variables from to actually run through our model. And then we have Time Tracker, which is another retroactive system, but it's got terrifically accurate data for 6+ years now. We then fed all of that information. So we get the property information from K1, we get the opportunities from Yardi, we get the opportunity from K1, and we got the time from Time Tracker. And we bundled that all into Azure Machine Learning Studio, which, who's used Machine Learning Studio? Anybody? A few people? It's actually really easy. I mean, they were talking about it in the keynote. It's not that hard. I can do it, you can do it. So when we started getting in there, we started building the model. It's a GUI interface, as you can see here, and it kind of chunks into 3 main sections. So the first one is the ingestion point. So we've got 3 source systems. We need to get the data from there, assemble it into a common kind of normalized format, and then we're ready to do the next section, which is cleansing. This is probably the biggest part of the whole thing, is cleaning that data, because I've yet to find a perfect source system. I've seen some that are really good, but all of them require some cleansing because some decisions were made in the past that are going to affect now how you can model on that data. And then the last one, which is the cross-validation, the parameter tuning, that's the last mile. So that's just improving upon how the model actually works. So again, just to live dangerously, I'm going to show you some results of this. So this is in Power BI. Unfortunately, Machine Learning Studio, although it's great, it's really not great for actually visualizing how the model's doing. So you need something like Power BI to be able to explain to the business users, hey, this is working, right? And so what we did was we put it into Power BI to educate the business on how this is going to work, build their confidence that this is actually a good thing, and you can rely on this the next time. So we broke it into 3 stages, or really it kind of patterned itself on 3 stages. When we first did the model, you can see here we're in stage 1. The dots are all over the place. What we'd like to have is a nice 45-degree line with all the dots as close as we can to say that the machine is predicting based on what it really did take, as we know from Time Tracker, right? And so on the initial model, it's hard to read there, but it's 6.5 hours margin of error on an average. Not bad, you might think, but when some of these properties only take 5 to 10 hours in a month to service, that's pretty big. That's a pretty wide deviation and not very reliable. So what we did was we said, okay, we're clearly missing something here. We need more data. We're missing data points that really matter. And so the next stage here, if we click on that, was the second step, which we started, and we've got kind of a little checklist here. Initial model only had that small subset of data points. The next one, though, we started talking to the business. We said, what else matters? We asked them in the first place what matters, and they gave us those few things. We said that's not enough. We started then pulling more information, like the leases, the tenant count, all these other attributes that they didn't think were important, but really were. After that, we cut the margin of error in half. We went down to 3 hours, which is better, still not great though. And depending on the market actually, and whether the market had enough data to make it really statistically valuable, we actually had swings. In certain markets, it was like 14 hours margin of error. In others, though, it was really, really good because they had a lot of data, they had a lot of properties, and we had a lot to pull from. And so finally, after tuning that parameter with the last pass here, we got even closer. So you can kind of see the progression of these dots. We still have outliers, and we always will until that data gets better, we get more of it. But we're able to now predict down to 2.7 on an average, but in certain markets, it was 1 hour margin of error, which is really good. And so the next step for this thing, now that we've got the model tuned, we need more data, absolutely, to make it even better, and we need it to continuously keep learning. But we've got enough here now to show the business, you can trust this. And we're factoring in like things that they wouldn't even think of. So the property is one thing, but what about the tenure of the accountant? in terms of how long they've been with the company. And what happens if you change up that accountant and move a more junior one on? What would that do? The model factors all of that in. So now they can make really smart decisions, not only on what to price this on, but also how to staff the properties. Because we capture all that information from our application, we're surfacing it up through visuals, but we're also now teaching the machine how to deal with it as well. Any questions on this? You guys can stop me at any point here. So in terms of lessons learned, we've got quite a few. This was, our dipping our toe in the water in this stuff, but I would say that these lessons learned are pretty universal. So completeness and the accuracy of the data, that is key. If there's no data there, you can't run machine learning models. If the data's there, but it's very messy, you're going to spend more time doing the cleansing than you are doing the modeling. The modeling is actually really easy. Machine Learning Studio makes it very, very easy. It's drag and drop. You actually can just point pre-existing models at it, and it'll try to figure it out. The mandatory data fields on the source system is another one. We found that we've got validation on the front side, but when it came to Yardi, for example, the validation didn't match with K1. And so what we required as the property came in was also then optional down the line. And so the data could be modified, could be changed. There was some really bad decisions made in terms of keeping the right data in the right field. So in one particular case, somebody thought it'd be great to put the client name in the market field. So market is a geography-based dimension. And they said, well, this client wants to see their reports across all the geographies. So they started to manipulate the data, and they put the client name in there. That has a massive impact on things like this, because now you've got a mixed bag of the data dimensions, and it just doesn't work. The machine readable data is another key one. So we did get some spreadsheets, we got some insights from people, but having it be in a format that the machine learning model can consume and chew through continuously, not just that first pass, but you want your machine to continually get better. And so having it in a machine readable format means that you're going to be able to keep training it over and over again. And you don't have to spend weeks having somebody manipulate that data, clean it up. And so that's a really key one as well. The other big one is time. Like, we needed more time. We did this pretty quickly, but if we had more time to make some of these process changes, fix some of the things upstream, it would be even better as well. So where are we going to go with this? So K1, like I said, today it's got a single field where they would put in that number. Where we want to go with it, though, is the Machine Learning Studio actually gives you an API, a REST API. And you can then call into that REST API, provide it variables that matter, and then have it run on the model and produce back a range. That's our next move, is we're actually going to upgrade K1 now to, in the first days, while they get comfortable with it, give them a suggestion. So as they work through their opportunity and the keying in the variables, this is going to run in the background, call a web service, and then tell the user, hey, you should be probably bidding this within this range to be profitable. As they get comfortable with that, we'll start to make that the default, where the range or the value is what the system's going to take, and then allow an override by exception. Because again, there's situations where you might want to run a loss leader, things like that, but by default, we're hoping to move to where the machine is doing the thinking for them. I got a couple of links on here as well in terms of where you can learn more about Machine Learning Studio. A quick Google will find them as well. So what questions do you guys have? I mean, this is a little bit of show and tell on things that we've done. Showed you some of the Pulse things where we're doing just pure visualization analytics. And it's a fun thing. Like, we really enjoy it. But then we've also got the profit side as well, which is using the predictive analytics now to make a difference for our business. So was this useful? Do you guys see parallels here for maybe for your own businesses? If you're a developer, do you see how you can leverage this? Yeah? No? Blank stares? Question?
So in this process, have you enhanced the kind of back-end predictive models, maybe machine learning algorithms or whatever in Yardi and K1? Have you enhanced it?
So the question is, have we used this now to enhance Yardi and K1, to improve upon their own processes? So Yardi, unfortunately, it's a vendor-supplied system. But there is an upgrade process in place right now. They're moving to the latest version, which is all cloud-based and PaaS. The vendor's actually implementing a lot of this on their side now, which is terrific because then we get the benefit of that. When it comes to K1, I mean, we're enhancing it by putting in this pricing model in the backside. but we will be looking for other opportunities. And even in Time Tracker, for example, we want to bring it there as well. So one of the things on the slide from Microsoft this morning was the preference analyzer. There's a relatively new cognitive service where if you're a developer, you don't have to worry about building a model. It's a pre-existing model, and just kind of summarize my understanding of it, you can basically just feed this API information, and then if it detects anomalies because it's out of line with what it's been seeing, it can report back to you, or it can give you patterns back. And so we want to use that kind of thing to bring into Time Tracker and other applications to detect your behavior as a user and start to offer up convenient shortcuts and things like that. You know, hey, I see that you've been putting 5 hours to this property for 6 weeks now. Would you like me to add that to your template so the next time you open your timesheet, that property's there and it's got 5 hours on it? Things like that is what we want to move to.
After cleaning the data, how do you deal with the data bias? Was there anything such problems with data bias?
So the question is, after cleaning it, was there bias in the data? Absolutely there is. Like I said, certain markets, St. Louis, which is where I'm based, is a very clean market. Lots of data. You know, it's a market where we have a lot of presence, and so the data points were very rich. And the team that kind of handles the data quality, we're very good in that market, and so terrifically great data. Connecticut, on the other hand, which is up on the east coast of the U.S., very, very small market for us. We have very little presence there, so the data points were extremely scarce. And if they were there, they weren't terrifically cleansed as well. So we had a natural bias in the process that mimicked our own footprint in the markets. And so we had to deal with that. And that's why, you know, on an average, it's great. You know, we've got 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of error, margin of error. But in the really clean, really rich markets, it's much, much lower. And in the bad markets, or the poor data quality markets, it's much, much worse. So yeah, we have a lot of bias. And the only thing we can really do with that is sell more property services, right? You know, get more people in those markets to get more data points for us. And also really, really push data cleanliness, good hygiene, and better data practices as well. All right, I have 13 seconds. Any last questions? All right, well, thank you very much for having me, guys. Hopefully this gave you some inspiration for something to do with this, and enjoy the rest of the Dev Day.